All right. Welcome to the May 13th meeting of the San Juan County's Home Rule Charter Review Commission. This is the Governance Committee, and we have an exciting agenda tonight. Let's take roll. Is Olivia Roseberry here? Are you here? Sure. Janet Brunell.
I am here.
David Dellendorf.
I'm here, present.
Jane Fuller.
Oui, je suis présent.
You know, that so classes up the room, I have to say.
Mais je mange.
Makes us all look better. I'm Dave Anderson, and I'm here. And I've heard that I've not heard from Tony Gazelle, who's not here, but I have heard from Richard Grout that he will be here later. So hopefully he can take part in our conversation.
Did you start? Have you started recording?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that Kevin Ranker may not be here. He may try and drop in.
Yeah. But we do have a quorum, I believe. So we can make actions and do business. I did send out two, with the help of David Dellendorf, I did send out two copies of the minutes. We failed to pass the minutes last time. And so can we, if you all got a chance to read them.
Mm-hmm.
And shall we do the minutes from April 29th? Is there any discussion about those minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes from April 29th.
Okay, before there's a second, does David?
I'll second it, but I also have a question. Did everybody read those minutes?
Why?
Well, there's a catch comment in there. There's something in there that if you did read the minutes, you would be commenting on it. If you didn't read the minutes, then you're guilty.
Well, it just depends if we think like you, David.
No, it's not.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair. These sneaky tactics by the minute taker are entirely inappropriate.
Well, I will tell you what it is, and then you can decide whether to approve the minutes or not. And that is, we adjourned. There was a motion by Brownell to adjourn the meeting at 11 p.m., but it did not receive a second.
Oh.
Yeah, and that was when you were into your wine down in Palm Springs. So
You said 11 p.m.?
That's what she proposed, yes.
Oh.
It did not pass. It did not pass. Yeah, right. You saw that.
Well, no, what I saw, I was going to make an edit. I mean, I think it's the April 29th. You made the comment that we adjourned at 7:58.
No, that's
no.
That's that's on the 29th. It's 8:53.
Yeah, right. No,
7:53.
7:53.
So nobody reads the minutes, obviously. But anyway,
I caught that you said 7:53 and it should be 8:53.
It is 8:53. I'm looking at it right now.
Is it? Okay. I don't.
It says 8:53.
Okay.
I've skimmed the minutes. I'm satisfied with their accuracy, and I'm just so grateful and overwhelmed with the diligence and precision of our minute taker that it's just phenomenal.
Wow, thank you.
So that is that do we have a second? That is?
He seconded. I think
second.
David seconded it.
All those in favor of approving the minutes for April 29th?
Aye.
Okay. Let's go on to the minutes for the May 6th meeting that we had last week. Is there any questions or comments, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second. I just have a funny comment that David, you picked up that Deborah suggested we replace the term sustainable tourism with regenerative tourism. But what's so funny about that is she kept referring to the Sedona tourism management plan, which is literally sustainability is all over it. It was just like, and by the way, the 4 pillars she talked about are just completely co-opted from the Sedona. Because I know everyone went this week and took a look at that too. But I just thought it was really funny that she did not want to do sustainability, but accurately reflected.
Yes.
Thanks, Janet. Mr. Chair, I have a question for Janet on that. So do we want, as a committee, do we have a view on use of the word sustainability as opposed to regenerative? Or maybe, yeah. go ahead.
Jane, I'm
Yep.
sorry, Jane, can
Yep.
we approve these minutes and just dig right into that?
Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. Yep.
Let's do that because it's a great conversation. All those in favor of approving these minutes?
I,
Aye.
Okay, great. So approved. Now, Jane, your question was? Thank you for
So-
waiting.
Yeah, no, I just wondered whether, and I'm raising this actually because, sitting on the process committee, which is discussing this document that you will soon be exposed to, that is a declaration of rights and responsibilities that's being proposed. The word used throughout that document is sustainable, not regenerative. And so I was just curious, like, if in the course of our discussion about what Janet has been researching and what we are needing to, just make some committee decision on for a proposal to the full commission, I just wondered, is that something we have a view on? I mean, I think in my view, I think it's probably not a bad idea to be somewhat consistent across committees in terms of the use of a word like sustainable, which is pretty much global parlance nowadays. And so anyway, I was just curious if anybody else had thoughts on that.
I mean, the only thing I would say is, we have to figure out how to sustain tourism, sustain community. Regenerative could mean we're regenerating and we want tourism to rule the day. I mean, it depends how you want to regenerate something. So I think consistency in terms of sustainability is a good idea.
Olivia.
Between the two words, sustainability seems to be way more appropriate than her other option, because we're not trying to,
Regenerate.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're there, like we're above and beyond, in my personal opinion, of where we're at with tourism. I think sustainability is something that we need to focus on, or we are going to things are going to fall apart. Like I even think about how summer 2021 is going to successfully happen for our service industry, and the overwhelming amount of jobs that are available. I don't know a place besides my place of business that isn't hiring, and I am lucky, and so I think about the word sustainable, and that has, in my opinion, way more power than to regenerate. It's like if our tourist economy tanked, and we were grasping at like, please come to the islands, we need your money to keep our economy going, then yeah, that word would be appropriate. But I think we need to be looking at the rapid, maybe it's like this incline in our last 10 years, because we're supposed to think 10 years forward. So I hope that's the word that we end up going with.
Kevin's here.
Yeah, Kevin.
yeah.
Welcome, Kevin. David.
Yeah, for Kevin's benefit, we're talking about the definition of sustainable tourism versus what Deborah suggested we use in a more modern term of regenerative tourism. So I just looked online and have found a number of articles of definitions for regenerative tourism. And I don't know if anybody has done that, and I just started to do it. And I think there's a lot to be said for the use of that term suggested by Deborah. I'm looking at an article that says evolving beyond sustainable tourism to regenerative tourism. So there's reasons for thinking, apparently, at least some articles, that regenerative is more complete and more holistic, et cetera, than the sustainable. But I think we would need to all do a little more research before we decide one way or the other. I know that might be confusing to voters, but I don't know if this is not necessarily going to get on the ballot. I think we're going in a different direction. So maybe it doesn't make any difference.
Can we actually move to that? That my recommendation is that we not put this as a charter amendment, that we do it as a recommendation to the county council. So that's my recommendation for this evening. I sent you a document about things that we could recommend to the county council. You know, my fear is we have a lot of big issues that are coming before the voters, and I'm not sure this is the most important one. But the other thing I will say is, if this goes on the ballot and gets voted down, then the county council can say, hey, went to the ballot, people voted it down for whatever reason. So we don't have to address it, versus, to me, it's important putting the responsibility at the county council and what they do with it. And I think the timing, actually, to Olivia's point, our recommendations will be hitting them in June, just as summer is ramping up. And I think that they will be hearing from constituents about this. So my strong recommendation is to make this a recommendation to the county council versus creating an amendment in the charter, because I really think that the county council has to own this and they have to make decisions about it. So that is my.
Does Janet want to put a motion on the table, or?
Yes, I would move that we make a strong recommendation to the county council that, one, they consider moving the tourism promotion into the county government. Short of that, I have several recommendations for the county council that they, in terms of amending the new contract that'll be coming up.
I think that
Kevin, please.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that just for the purposes of process, and also for the recommendations to the full commission, taking these one at a time would be it. So I would,
Kevin,
I'm glad that Janet stopped where she did.
You completely blanked out.
We lost
We didn't
you.
hear anything you said.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. What I said was that I think it's appropriate for the process with regard to the recommendations to the full commission, that these be taken one at a time. So I was glad that Janet stopped where she did, and that should be a motion there, and then requires a second. And then if there are additions to that, those can be considered separately by the subcommittee, but then holistically by the full commission.
Okay. Janet, do you have thoughts about that?
Even David was confused by that.
I was confused by it too.
His hands like waving around, going,
Yeah.
what did he say?
I guess I don't understand Kevin's approach. Why wouldn't we have a complete package and not go in piecemeal with whatever we're recommending? If I misunderstood you, let
Or
me
give
know.
an example what you're talking about, Kevin.
How about this? Why don't you go ahead and finish your why don't you share the additions to your first point with us, and then we can decide if they should be one motion or another. But maybe the motion was premature. Maybe we need to hear what your full idea would be, and then we can decide if that should be one motion and recommendation to the full commission or separate.
So are you saying my first recommendation is that the county council, well, my first recommendation is they finish the tourism management plan. My second recommendation is that once the management plan is done, they consider moving tourism promotion into the county government. My third recommendation is, short of doing that, there are other things they should be doing. So is that what you're talking about? I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Janet,
Yeah.
can I share my screen? I have it right here. Can I share my screen?
Actually, I can share it because there were many typos. I tried to clean up some of the typos. So can I share my screen?
Oh, hey, Dick Grout, you're here.
Welcome.
Usually you're early. Now you're late. What's going on?
It's a secret.
Uh-oh. Let me find it.
No secrets in the CRC, man.
I want Janet back in Palm Springs. This meeting was so much more fun.
Well,
But
that's
we
just wrong.
But she moved that we adjourn at 11 o'clock at night. That was,
I think that was a joke. Okay, so here are the recommendations. One, it seems that county is just starting to move towards the development of a tourism management plan. That the scope should not only take in feedback from stakeholders, But, and I strongly believe this, the county needs to get some data on how tourism affects the islands, not just, we hate tourism, we need it for business. That they actually within this tourism plan look at how is water being used, how is infrastructure being affected, how is waste product being generated by visitors. So that was part one.
Can we?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, would you rather we comment on these as you're saying them, or you want to go through all three and then we'll comment?
No, go ahead, comment now, and I'm going to make notes.
Olivia had her hand up.
Can
Oh.
you zoom in? I don't have my glasses on.
Wow, you wear glasses?
Oh yeah.
Olivia, you're too young.
I know,
Readers.
that's totally 100% what I was going to say.
Old soul.
Okay,
I
where's
got-
this?
I got class first time this year, Olivia.
Okay, where's the
I'm
zoom
sorry.
factor on the word on Word? Oh, wait,
So
here
if
it
you
is.
go up
I
to-
got it.
it's
Yeah,
on
right there.
view.
Oh, you got it.
In the corner there. Here you
Is
go.
that better?
Yep.
I can see words. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, so the first part is about they must develop this tourism management, plan, which I think they're doing anyhow, but the county needs to know how tourism affects the islands. What is the
But-
impact on our economy? How does tourism shock natural resources and infrastructure? How much water is used by tourism? What waste is generated? Those are just examples. I do have to say, I love this phrase. How does tourism shock natural resources? I thought that was such great. Kevin?
Thank you.
Is his hand out? So I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm on my iPad, and I have no idea how to raise my hand digitally on this thing. So this doesn't read to suggest what you just said. So a couple of suggestions. One is this should say, my recommendation would be that this, because this is all under recommendations. So
Yeah.
the council can agree to act upon it or totally reject it and tell us to take a hike.
Mhm.
So with that in mind, we can be a little more direct in the language. And so if the language said the county shall complete its tourism management plan,
Okay.
and I would say by whatever date you want, whatever is realistic, talk to folks. So is it the end of this year, is it the end of next year, whatever.
Okay.
But a date certain. So you say that the county shall complete, and it's a shall, not a should, the tourism master management plan by date certain.
Mhm.
Next sentence is the scope shall include,
Okay.
go through these different items.
Okay.
See, I think Jane and then David.
So a bit of a clarifying question for Kevin on that, in the sense that, so if we're making recommendations as opposed to amendments, Kevin, and we, what authority does the CRC have to direct the county council to do something? So I take your point in terms of the county shall, but if we're not amending, if we're not proposing an amendment, I'm just curious about that. So I'd really appreciate you speaking to that. And then just another very minor thing, just as looking at the wording of the text under number 1 and the accompanying paragraph, is a wide spectrum of, and I would say, stakeholders.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kevin, can you just clarify that for us?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. The fact that this has now gone to a recommendation reminds me of another committee I sat on where I told somebody, you're a wimp, you're a big fat wimp. Anyway, the point is, this gets a little wimpy. This is what we're saying here has no actual impact except for the fact that it is a recommendation from the elected charter commission to the county council. So in all seriousness, the county council, as independently elected officials and as an independent legislative body, can totally ignore, act upon partially or act upon fully any recommendations we give them. My reason for the stronger language was so that we are strengthening the recommendation, so that we are saying, instead of saying it seems like, we're being deliberate, and we're saying, look, we instead of taking action, which we could have, by the way, while it is clear from our prosecutor's advice and clarification, we do not have the ability to direct the LTAC recommendations and funding. We could say as a recommendation, we want to create the Office of Sustainable Tourism. That could be done. We just can't direct the funding to it. That said, what is being recommended by Janet to us, by Commissioner Brownell to us, is that this be a recommendation to the council because they actually have the authority to change the funding allocation. So if we're doing that as a recommendation, I think that we be very clear and deliberate in our language. And that's why I was suggesting that it be shall versus should. The short answer is the county council can entirely appreciate and act upon our recommendation, or they can totally reject it. And that's up to them.
Okay.
Thank you.
David, and then Olivia.
Yeah, I don't understand Kevin's explanation for justification for using shall. I mean, shall is you will do this, and if we're making a recommendation, we can't say you shall do this. We have to say we recommend you do this. And I think any instructions like shall has to be sent to the voters rather than just in a recommendation. I just don't see the logic of what you're saying, Kevin. Here's a suggestion. If we really want them to complete this plan, and they shall complete it, then and maybe some of these other points, maybe we do an amendment, leaving out some of the stronger elements that were in the original proposal from Janet, but we could have it. You shall do this. You shall complete the plan, and then maybe we just have the rest of what Jane has here in the terms of saying, and once the plan is completed, we recommend you consider moving tourism promotion away, blah, blah, blah. And so we don't get into the assigning of the taxes. Like we said, we were told we can't do that. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we have a hybrid amendment that says you shall do this, and then we have recommendations for what they consider after that.
So, okay, Olivia, and then Richard. And then Kevin.
Can I actually hear what Janet was going to say? Crap, I haven't done that. Sorry.
So the only thing I was going to say, the one thing I know they're going to do is they're going to do this master plan. I mean, that for sure they're going to do, and it'll probably be done by the end of the year. So putting it in as an amendment is sort of, I don't understand the purpose of that, because they're going to do this. Now we could in the charter, which again, this is a legislative thing, and we're putting into the constitution of the county that they're going to have a tourism management plan. Now, I mean, I understand doing that in the constitution of the county if it's evaluated, every 5 years, or it's evaluated every 3 years, if this is an ongoing thing. But it just seems like, this contract with the Visitors Bureau is a legislative decision of the county council. I personally feel giving them a strong recommendation from the CRC, making it public and saying, this is what you should do. And if they don't do it, then let the chips fall where they may. I mean, in terms of the public and the repercussions they're going to take. But that's just me.
So Olivia, did you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I would like to hear from you, Janet, of why you have changed your proposal. Is it because you got more information and now it makes more sense to make it a recommendation? Because you had me sold. And I whenever I'm, clearly swayed on something, I also like to really thoroughly deliberate the other side as well before I make a decision, rather, a rational decision versus emotional. And I think about, yes, the tourism master plan, what's the date? We don't know. The comp plan is taking forever, and they had an end date and it's still going. And so I think about 10 years ahead. And what if nothing happens and the tourism master plan is not completed or executed until 7 years from now? What then? And so I think about, of course, we don't have say over what the county council does with the funds. Obvious thing, you know, but what if we put it in our county constitution where they had to very seriously consider, okay, tourism, it must be, you know, put under the county manager. And we have to do this now, because I think about the parks. I think about how the Shaw General, you know, the Shaw General store was going to shut down because the park was going to shut down because the county didn't have enough funding. And now if they have to focus that, and they had the opportunity to move funds to keep that park open, and it wasn't even a consideration, I think about what else, you know, if we made this a part of the county, it could positively affect. So that's kind of where my head is, you know, and where I have been for the last, say, 3 weeks since you gave that original presentation. And so I would love to hear about how all of a sudden you made that change, because I know that I also did the same thing where I presented something to this committee and then I changed my mind as someone who brought the presentation to the committee. So I'd like to hear about your deliberation.
Maybe,
Janet,
maybe,
go ahead, please. Yeah.
so, some of it is politics, quite frankly, Olivia. We're going to be putting some controversial amendments out, and there is a chance that because of whatever, this could get voted down, and that relieves the county council of its responsibility. The people have spoken. We are done. We're going to go back to the contract. Game over. My hope is that with enough press about whatever we're putting forward and this recommendation, that people will also start putting pressure on the county council that this is the way to go, and it needs to be owned by the county council, versus if this does not pass, that's it. They're like, people have spoken, done, we don't have to deal with this. So that's one of my reasons for doing this. It's a practical political consideration.
Dick Grout.
Yeah, I want to come back to what Kevin was talking about with the shell, and I agree with Janet, although it pains me. I agree with Janet.
Wait, it pains you to agree with me?
Janet, all right, David, I just finished a 105-minute virtual wine tasting. That's why I was late. When I get to Thursday, which is the end of my Zoom meetings, I'm not leaving the wine tasting early for this. Anyway, I completely agree with Kevin that we should say shall in here, but the other thing I would say is, number one, we should make it much stronger. And I'm happy to volunteer to draft something.
Great.
But not tonight.
Okay.
I think that the leadoff should be much stronger. And I think what we're doing, in answer to what Olivia was saying, is basically, to the degree that we have weight as a CRC, we're throwing our weight around and say, damn it, you need to do this, and you need to do this very soon.
Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, no, that was really good to listen to both Olivia and Dick just now after hearing Janet speak. Because I was kind of leaning where Olivia was, and then I listened to Janet, and then I listened to Dick, and I'm like, so it's interesting because I'm kind of all over the map, but I would like to think that many members of this commission are passionate enough about what we have been learning, gathering information about, researching, and developing views about that. We are all going to want to communicate with our constituents about what we've learned and express our views with them, share our views with them about why we're landing on certain things in certain ways. And I think that, you know, and I'm sure that Janet and probably many of you know that a lot of people who reside in this county feel strongly enough about this that they're going to pay good darn attention to such a recommendation. And then in a way, it's sort of, you know, as commissioners, we have our, you know, we have a role to play in terms of communicating where we landed on things. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, I'm realizing, listening to this discussion, that there are actually a few recommendations we have, quite a few, because we're not proposing all manner of things as amendments, but we are darn well doing our homework and coming up with some important findings. And I think that you know, we've got some work to do ahead of us in terms of consolidating those findings as recommendations where committees have decided they should be recommendations, and having this, you know, this a document that is very clearly sort of a recommendation document to council, and then that can be shared publicly. So yeah, anyway, so that's where I'm at.
Kevin and then David.
Thank you. 2 points. One is, and I didn't see it in here, and if I missed it, I apologize. I think one of the recommendations also needs to be to the council that they shall strongly consider the use of these funds for employee housing.
It is in here.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's the second to last point. By reducing lodging tax funding going to the Santa Rosa View, that allows LTAC to consider other tourist related needs, seasonal affordable housing. I can put seasonal worker, more allocation county parks. Some of this may be defined by data from the tourism management plan.
Okay, so I'm glad it's in there. I think we need to strengthen it.
Okay.
So when Dick does his drafting for you, I think all there, and we also say the county. What's that?
You're going in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm trying to stay outdoors since I'm still in my bubble from being on a plane. Anyway, yes, it's horrible. I want to give my wife a hug. That'll happen in 2 more days. So anyway, that is one, is that we need to strengthen that language, but thank you for having it in there already. The second point, I want to underscore something Dick said. And I also, I said this to the full commission a couple of meetings back. It is not uncommon for recommendations to go to the county council from the Charter Review Commission in other counties. It is also not uncommon for the Charter Review Commissions to take bold action. We have been told by other elected officials and by members of the public, kind of this idea of, oh my God, what are you doing? Well, our charter, we are the newest charter county in the state. We are only 15 years old as far as being a charter county. Other charter counties who have been around much longer take bold actions, and they take that through propositions that end up on the ballot, and they take that through recommendations to the county council. And in those situations in other counties, 2 things have happened. The county council pays attention and the public pays attention. And the latter, the public, pays attention because there's a loud voice around the subject matter. And so I think on both sides of this debate, there will be very loud voices. So I think it's important that we be very clear and decisive in our language. And I think it's also very important that we put forward the prescriptive language that we want the council to consider, because I think they will.
Any other
I've got
comments?
my hand up. I've got my
Oh,
hand
David,
up.
yes, David.
Yeah, a couple of things, but Olivia, I was in favor of Janet's proposal, yes, but then we had other issues develop, including we can't tell the LTAX people how to use how to grant their funds, and another reason I think we couldn't go with full bore with hers was because of the management plan. I think it would make more sense to wait for the management plan to be developed, and then based upon its recommendations, implement a structure for this new office. So that's another reason. I still am confused by this shell thing, because don't forget, we're supposed to recommend to the county council amendments, and those amendments go to the voters, okay? And the voters ultimately approve it, a two-step process. What you're talking about, a recommendation of shall, is not going through that process. We're shortcutting the process, and we're saying to the county council, you shall do this. And that's, I think, is completely inappropriate. It goes against whatever regulations are on the state level of what the charter review commissions can do. We'd be shortcutting. The voters ultimately have to determine if you're going to order and say you shall do this. That has to go to the voters. So if Kevin's argument is correct, then we should do everything as a shall recommendation. We could do the justice and equity. We can do everything else. Just shall, and just forget about making amendments. And you can't do that. Obviously, we can't do that. I understand that we want the county council to do these things, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. I mentioned this earlier, and I'm going to emphasize it again because I think it's the best approach, that number one be an amendment. And I know they're going to go ahead, as Janet said, they're going to do this study. So you could do an amendment that says, when the county council has completed, and you could put a deadline in there, it's a tourism management plan. Then you go on with recommendations and say you shall consider not giving orders, or you should say, because it doesn't have to do with LTAX, you could say, like number two could say, once the plan is developed, the county shall consider moving tourism promotion at a minimum. And number three, the minimum, the county council shall consider making changes to the new contract. Then you can put in the shalls, but I don't think you can put them in as a recommendation. And I would suggest, unless everybody thinks I'm nuts, that you ask Randy about this, because I don't think you can have a recommendation that says shall. I think it goes completely against the whole process that charter review commissions are expected to follow and how it ultimately gets to the voters. Am I crazy?
I just
all think.
It's an open-ended question there.
Honestly, should we answer honestly or?
Yeah,
Honestly, I can
Yes.
take it.
Yes, David, but it's unrelated to what you just said.
Yeah.
So
Commissioner Ranker, please.
thank you. So two things. First of all, the entire piece, as Commissioner Brownell is recommending it, will be a recommendation. So technically, David, to your point, the entire piece is a should, because it's a recommendation under the law, under state statute. And this is something I actually spent a lot of time on, because I didn't realize until January or February, when I looked into this, that we could actually do recommendations. I had never heard of that. And when I did, I spent a lot of time looking into this. I also looked at several other counties' charters and how it was worded. And the entire piece is a recommendation under the law. So under the law, regardless of what we say, we could have language that says, you will do this, damn it, you shall, whatever, it doesn't matter. The entire piece is legally a recommendation. So it's a should. If what I was saying, the reason I said shall is because it adds more weight to our position. If you say shall, technically the entire hang on. Technically the entire document is a should under the law. The other thing that I would say with regard to your first point, that number one should be an amendment, is I am increasingly concerned at the number of propositions that will be put on the ballot. And so I will be encouraging us to have a discussion at the full commission level at the end to evaluate which of these need to go forward. And this is one where I would strongly recommend that it remain a recommendation to the county council as opposed to a proposition on the ballot, just because we don't want 15 propositions. We want to get closer to 5.
David, or I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Jane, I'm sorry, Jane has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a slightly different comment, but because not exactly on that stream, but it strikes me that, and I'm mystified, frankly, somebody has to explain this to me, that our county council can't pass a goddamn comp plan that sort of projects the future of this county, which involves so much deliberation and consultations and stakeholder involvement, all the rest of it. And I just want to say, you know, to be proposing a charter amendment about a tourism management plan when we haven't even addressed really the comp plan in the charter, at least so far as I've seen, seems a bit strange and incongruous. And so, but it does baffle me, and it's maybe a little my lack of knowledge of the comp plan process in the county. But you know, what I would also suggest, though, if this is a recommendation, that there really needs to be alignment between the comp plan of this county and a tourism management plan, and that was spoken to by Janet, Commissioner Brownell, and in the discussions we had in the last 1 or 2 meetings. So anyway, that's just my take. If someone could demystify the whole comp plan issue, I'd love it.
Can I do that?
No,
Anybody except
Janet's the expert.
So what I'm hearing is 2 things. One, that there is a feeling, and I'm just doing bullet points, there might be consensus about moving forward with this as a strong recommendation to the county council. The second bullet point is that Dick will take this and beef it up in terms of the stronger wording of it, and do a pass that. Am I missing something? Because I think that's what we're saying. No
I
one's
think
speaking.
you're spot on.
David has his hand raised.
I'm sorry. Thank you, David.
Talking.
As long as the term shall is not used, Kevin kind of implied that, you know, put shall in there, it's meaningless because they don't have to follow that shall. I don't like that argument. I think the public would not understand that if we publicize a recommendation that says shall. They're not going to understand, and they're not going to like the fact that we have passed something that says that county council shall do something when we know damn well they don't have to do it. So I would vote against anything that has the word shall in it. Maybe there's some magic language that Dick can come up with that is softer than that passes muster with this the discrepancy that I mentioned about how we manage, how we're expected to come up with recommendation. Can I address the issue that Jane brought up of why the comp plan is taking so long?
No.
2 things.
No.
They're completely overburdened with their everyday responsibilities, number 1. They're understaffed, number 2. And number 3, the public and a lot of special interest troops are weighing in all the time through the planning commission, which my wife was on, by the way, for 5 or 6 years. And so I know a lot about their workings. And they're constantly being barraged with public comments and arm twisting and et cetera, et cetera. It's a common phenomenon in any jurisdiction that these kind of things get just debated and commented on and just dragged on. And it's frustrating. Everybody is frustrated. I would suggest that we don't, if we move forward with this, that there not be a linkage with the comp plan, because you're just going to complicate things tremendously. We should have something that's going out to a consultant. This money, did you mention $100,000, Janet, or is that my imagination that was allocated?
I think that's what Deborah said, that $100,000.
Well, whatever that number is, that should go to an outside consultant, and that person is not going to get dragged into the comp plan debate. And then management going forward should be independent of the comp plan management. I feel strongly that they should be 2 completely separate entities. Otherwise, you're going to get into a huge quagmire involving the people who deal with the comp plan. Should be independent.
I'd like to make some comments in a minute, but first I'd like to hear from Commissioner Grout.
It really grieves me now that twice I have to agree with David. What David just said about the comp plan, I absolutely agree with. We absolutely want an independent, separate tourism management plan we do not want to get tied into the comprehensive plan and that whole process. I think that would be the death knell. The other thing that occurs to me in listening to David is I'm thinking about the personalities that are on the current county council. And I can think of one council member, absolutely, definitely, and a second one possibly, who likely would take significant umbrage at being told shall in a recommendation. So I'm rethinking what I said just a few minutes ago, and actually, when I sit down to rework number one and I'll look at this whole thing, I'll think some more about that, and maybe come back and tell you what I think about that. But I do think there's some wisdom in not doing something that potentially might piss them off.
Thank you.
We'll have other ways of doing that.
Yeah. If I can make some comments here, I think that I still like the idea of putting an amendment forward. I think just if the amendment is only dealing with the master plan of tourism, and I think it'd be very popular. I think it recognizes that tourism is an essential part of our county, and it's very important, more important than any other county. It's central to who our county is, and it's recognizing that value in the charter. And I think it'd be very popular if it's just requiring that we make a master plan, and that that would bring about that people would come to the ballot and be excited about bringing our tourism more into the government and away from the corporations who are controlling the administration of it. And I think having the rest of the things about housing and the LTAC or the lodging tax, all that could be findings of how this could be funded and where the monies could go through. But just creating the plan and having the plan on the county's on the county level, I think it'd be really good. And they could find it, and they could find a way to put it in the comp plan if they wanted to. It does seem like it would fit in the comp plan, but certainly we wouldn't want to dive into doing that here. So I would support the idea of just putting the first one as an amendment. Say, Dave, is it David? You have your hand up?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, Dave. I think Kevin suggested that we might have too many issues on the ballot. I think we could sort that out at the full Charter Commission meetings at the end, which I think Kevin said we're going to have to set priorities. And I think we could have that discussion at that point in time. If it should be, we should back off and have a recommendation. But I think it's very, very important. I think it really will get people's attention. There are a lot of things we're going to put forward that people are going to yawn at and say, I don't understand and I don't have strong feelings. This is going to be one that's going to get their attention, and it's going to be hopefully to our benefit that we have come up with such an idea and are pushing it. And they'll maybe be more supportive of other things on it. If you have other things on there that don't make any sense whatsoever, that kind of turns people off and says, I don't like this whole thing. And they start voting no. Anyway, I think this is something that should be on there. But again, we can decide that, can't we, Kevin, at a later meeting? But we need to recommend it, as Dave said, I think, to the full commission. As an amendment.
Dick, and then Jane.
I completely agree with Janet that we should not do an amendment. And part of the reason is, I mean, I hear from so many people so often how fed up they are with what's been happening with tourism in the last year and a half, 2 years. And I can hear some of these people that talk to me saying, we don't need another damn plan. We just need them to do something about tourism. And I agree with Janet that if it got voted down, it completely lets the council off the hook. So I don't support that at all, doing it as an amendment.
Jane?
And Dave,
Yeah, my hand is down. I defer to
I'm sorry.
the next person, which is, I think, Kevin. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't see you there. Kevin, please.
I will not admit I'm agreeing with David, but actually I'm not actually, but I'm willing. I'm willing to go with should instead of shall, if that makes me. But these are all recommendations. So legally, there's no issue whatsoever with saying shall. It's a recommendation. This is, and actually, if you look at the other county recommendations, that's the way it's gone. The other thing I have to say is, and Dick, you know this, we have an adopted comprehensive plan. Okay, it's adopted by law. It has passed, quote unquote, already. Under the statutes, under the Growth Management Act, our comprehensive plan has to be updated on a regular basis. The staff's comments to us regarding constantly working on the comp plan were regarding the updates, and there's updates under like the Shoreline Master Program or the Critical Areas Ordinance and other aspects. The original maps and zoning and such is done less frequently, but we have an adopted plan. So I just want to clarify that. The final thing I would say is that I am not in favor of a proposition being recommended by, which is what we've been calling amendments, to the full commission on this subject matter. I think for all the reasons discussed this evening, it's better as a recommendation to the county council. I think that it has to be a strong recommendation.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for Dick to help us with that. The other thing I would say is, I just want to underscore what I said earlier. I think some of the ideas that have come up with regard to housing, with regard to having it be internal, we need to be very clear on that. And then we also need to recognize that we're all going to need to make sure we educate the public on why we're putting this forward.
Jane, did you have a?
No,
hand up?
thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm fine. I don't, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Well,
It's a public comment period.
is it right now? I don't have time on me. It is getting to be public comment period. I don't think there's any public here.
You are past public comment period, but if there's none present, then you can call for public comment and say there's none present.
Okay, there's no, is there a public here? There's none present, so we'll continue our discussion here. I would, yes.
I was gonna say, did I make a motion about making this a recommendation? Where are we on this?
Yes,
Yeah, yes,
yes, you did. This is long
Sorry,
discussion.
point of order. Janet made a motion and there was not a second. I will second Janet's motion, but I have no idea. I need that to be repeated to us, please.
David, what did I say?
I am not taking minutes until I actually watch the video, so I don't know.
Oh,
What?
Well,
okay.
but Janet, go ahead and make another recommendation.
I move that conceptually, we move forward with a strong recommendation to the county council with several points. The first point being that they develop a management plan to be completed by December 2021. That once the plan is developed, that they consider moving tourism promotion and management away from the contract with the DMO into the county government. And 3, at a minimum, the county council, if it chooses to renew the contract, have considerations as noted below. So to decrease the overall amount of the contract, and by reducing the lodging, thereby when you reduce the lodging tax funding going to the outside entity, that allows LTAC to consider other tourist related needs, including seasonal working housing. And when entering into a new contract with the outside entity, that they define the composition of its advisory board contractually. Right now it's all business interests, but it needs to be a mix of resident and constituent concern. Those are my 3 points. And by the way, if they don't do anything, I will lead the proposition in a year to do all this as a proposition. So.
Got a guarantee there.
Second?
Okay.
A second.
There's a second.
Can you stop sharing so we
Oh,
can see
yeah.
everyone?
No.
David Dellendorf seconds.
What?
Okay.
Jane has her hand up.
Jane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I feel super strongly about the issue of there being an expanded board that
Yeah.
has citizen representation. It astounds me that
Yeah.
there is not that kind of representation on the board, given how strongly people feel about this. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Kevin, you had your hand up?
2 points, and sorry to bring this up, but Janet, in your conversations with the prosecuting attorney, do we have the authority to change the makeup of the LTAC?
No, it's not LTAC I'm talking about. The
It's-
Visitors Bureau itself has an advisory board. And the Visitors Bureau Advisory Board is composed of all business people. There's not
Okay.
a single person representing any interest other than business on the Visitors Bureau.
Right, and then well, technically they're they're a business association.
Yeah, but with contractually, the county council can,
Yeah, I totally understand.
Yeah.
I clarifying that I think under state statute, the LTAC is defined.
that we can't touch. That is absolutely mandated by state law.
Okay.
Uh,
So the
David?
other thing-
Nope.
Hang on. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yeah. Yes, please continue.
I just wanted to process question here. So these recommendations are vague and not what we're saying we're going to recommend to the CRC, I believe. And so I don't think we have another meeting before the presentation, right, when this is recommended. And so how is that going to be defined, and how are we all going to agree upon the language that's coming from Dick that's going to be all awesome?
Well, a lot of what you've wanted is in here. It's just Dick is going to beef it up a little bit.
Yeah, I'm just asking, how will we approve? I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Kevin, please continue.
How approve that language that's BS?
Did
Did you guys hear that?
you say BS?
No,
No, I said, how are we going to approve the final language that's going to be recommended to the CRC?
David, can I go to you after Dick?
Janet, let Janet answer, maybe answer
Okay.
that. 'cause-
Yeah, I was going to go, Kevin, is there a reason why we can't do it by email? I mean, it's not a public meeting, but we're going to present it publicly.
We can't
No,
take an action. Can
yeah.
can I respond?
Yeah,
It ha-
Dick, please, and then we'll go to David.
What I would propose, and I will try my hardest to do this tomorrow, if not, it'll be Saturday. I can send it by email. Everybody can review it. And then, I hate to say it, but if everybody will read it and we don't have major issues, perhaps we could do a 15-minute Zoom and take the action.
I'm good
It's
with
just,
that.
we can't do anything over email because then we're violating public meeting.
That's it.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was my point. You can't take action outside of a public meeting. So the final presentation to the CRC, unless we're just going to trust Dick to do it or something, which you could do a motion today. You could do a motion today to authorize Janet and Dick to finalize language for the presentation, because the ultimate decision will still be made by the full CRC. So that could take place. Alternatively, you have to do what Dick just suggested, which you have another meeting.
Can I interrupt? I like what you just said. How about if we make that motion now with the understanding that when Janet and I present that by email, if anybody has major heartburn, and I mean major heartburn,
Yeah.
no?
That-
Go ahead.
Mr.
That- Yeah, please, go ahead.
So the motion would have to be that we are authorizing Janet and Commissioner Grout to
What's his name?
finalize language for the presentation that would ultimately be adopted by the CRC. We can't suggest that there would be another decision made without a public meeting. So we're authorizing them to put together the presentation, and we could say in that motion, we are authorizing them to do so based on the language we adopted today, which
Okay.
very clearly states the agenda. It's just, it's not specific.
What I was going to say, Kevin, is after Janet and I send that out, only if somebody had major heartburn, we would then have a 15-minute Zoom. So we would do a public
Oh.
meeting.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Does that work?
Are you offering that as a friendly amendment?
Sure.
Was
Okay.
mine a motion then?
Well, to be
No,
to
the
be amendment
motion-
to what the Janet's motion. Right?
Can I comment?
Yeah. David, please.
Let's not get into a discussion of amending something right now. Our final action is going to be taken when Dick comes up with his recommended changes. Why don't we just move off of approving anything now and debating anything now and just do it at that time? And I have two other comments about the content. Janet, a deadline of December 31, 2021 for completion of the tourism plan.
Yes.
That's unworkable. There's no way it's going to be done by 2021. We're halfway through the year. They have to go out to an RFP. They have to, and you know, that's just unrealistic. I think it should be 2022. And this another thing is there's different advisory boards are thrown around. The Visitors Bureau has an advisory board. LTAC is an advisory board. We're now talking about a tourism department, perhaps, which is going to have an advisory board. I just suggest that when you use the term advisory board in here, when you go through the final wording, that you make sure it's clear which advisory board we're talking about. And again, we can't do anything about the LTAC advisory board, but if we have an advisory board for the new department, yeah, we could influence that. I don't know, can we influence and can we dictate what the Visitors Bureau does for its advisory
Yes,
board?
contractually.
I don't know. Kevin is shaking his head no. So
For the Visitors Bureau, contractually, sure, the county council in their
Yeah.
contract can ask them
Yeah.
to do that.
I'm sorry, the question was if we can't change that, but the
No.
county.
But the
change that.
county council can,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
recommendation,
okay, okay,
and my recommendation is the county council make that.
okay. Okay.
And Jane is suggesting that we have another meeting to finalize this before Thursday.
Kevin, before, Kevin, please.
So procedurally, we can authorize members of this committee to finalize the language based on the language that was put forward by Janet. And then that comes up for a recommendation for the full CRC. The whole CRC will ultimately adopt it or not. And if there are objections to the way the language is drafted, members of this committee could raise those in discussion before the CRC. But what I feel is there's pretty broad consensus on where we are. And so to move us forward, I think that we could authorize Janet and Dick to finalize the presentation based on the language that's been presented by Janet. And then we discuss it at the full CRC. But without that action, there is not a recommendation from the subcommittee to the CRC, which is what procedurally, and I don't want to get too caught up in the procedure because we can change it because it's our own procedure. But procedurally, we have been acting upon recommendations from subcommittees. And if it's not a recommendation, you go into the 5 votes in the back of the agenda because Dick said so.
I so move that we do that. I don't see any reason we can't let Janet and me do that. And then everybody on this committee has a chance in the full CRC meeting to
Say so.
make any changes, make any objections. I think that's a very efficient way to do it. I think
And
we've got it. Janet and I have a clear sense of what people are talking about.
And to Olivia's comment in the chat, Olivia, was there a second on the motion earlier? I wasn't sure if there was a second. So I thought that motion technically died. It was not recognized as dead, but I'm not sure on that. If there was a previous motion on.
I second it, and
Oh, you
I'm going
did?
to withdraw my second because I
And
have
I'll,
no
and
idea.
I'll read-
I have
and
no
I'll-
idea where we are.
And I will remove the motion and I will defer to Dick's motion that he and I come up with some verbiage that is the bulk of what is going to be said in the recommendations here. It's just changing the way it is said to make it stronger. So there's not going to be anything new introduced.
Okay,
That's a second. Janet, you are seconding Dick's motion?
Yes.
Okay. There's been a first and a second. Is there any discussion?
I hate to do it.
So
Mr.
if I understand
David?
correctly, this subcommittee is not going to vote again on this. Is that correct? Under this
Correct.
motion, we are not going to vote again. We're going to have Dick and Janet go to with the recommendation directly to the CRC.
That is correct.
Okay, I don't like that because then we aren't all voting on it. We're not voting on it.
You're gonna,
But we haven't seen the wording. Why don't we just table this whole thing until this 15-minute meeting that Dick has proposed, where we have the wording and we just get it done then? Why do we have all this
Because
discussion?
David, you'll make it a 45-minute meeting.
Good
I have
point.
a point of order.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
Got it.
point of order was who made the last, not this motion that's on that we're talking about now, but the previous motion. David withdrew his second. Who did the previous and did they withdraw their?
Janet
Me.
withdrew.
Yeah.
And I withdrew.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just need to clarify. Thank you very much. So the motion on the table is, with a second, is that we advance, that we authorize Janet and Dick to finalize language for the presentation that will be our recommendation. And that recommendation will be based on the language that Janet has put forward.
Correct.
I think we can clarify that. I think we can go to the CRC, and when we present these ideas, we can say that in a matter of time that we did not look at this final language, but that these are concepts that we agreed upon, and that we asked Dick and Janet to bring forward to us, and we want a discussion or vote on by the full CRC.
That's
Kevin and then
not,
David.
that's not my motion, and I don't agree to that. My motion is that what goes forward is our recommendation from this committee.
So I have a different, so under discussion, I'd like to, sorry, Mr. Chair, I think you called on me, but yes, okay. So
Then David.
So this would be a new motion. I'm not going to put it forward a motion because it would be out of order right now. What if we go back to Janet's original language and we just say, we move Janet's original language, and then in a second motion, we authorize Dick and Janet to put together the presentation with language that would be recommended for the full CRC to adopt. Would folks be willing to withdraw their motions on the table and consider that? Because then we have language that we're actually moving as a recommendation. We can tell the CRC, here's our recommendation. It's clear to the public watching this later what our recommendation was. And then you're putting together the presentation. That's it. Which would ultimately be the language that was adopted by the CRC.
So let me ask a question then, Kevin, because I made the motion that I would have to withdraw. How do we cover or explain that we're making a motion, if we do this, that we're putting forward Janet's wording, but then we're authorizing she and I to submit something different?
I'm just saying that the full CRC, we're circumventing a step that's already taken place too many times with the CRC, which is subcommittees have come forward with recommendations that weren't flushed out. The desire or the direction of the recommendation was clear, but the specific language needs to be flushed out. So we're going to have to come back and vote on that a second time by the CRC. What I'm saying is that this subcommittee make a recommendation based on Janet's language. And then in the presentation, what you would do is say, based on that language, we are now recommending to the full CRC with all of us on the subcommittee present to that conversation, that this is the ultimate language the CRC adopt, and then we adopt it. Alternatively, we just go forward with the recommendations as they are stated, and then the CRC will have to work with our staff to finalize that and come back for a second vote with the CRC. Or we do another meeting in the next few days before Wednesday or Thursday, whenever you're up.
I vote for that we just do a draft and then have a quick 20-minute meeting that everyone says, great, this is what we're presenting.
David.
Yeah,
Sorry,
let me-
I
Wait,
apologize.
Jane's had her hand up for,
Jane, you have? Okay, I didn't see it.
Yes, I
Okay,
have. I'm
Jane
sorry.
and David.
Yeah, no, I just want to, just based on my experience in other committees, I think it's extremely important that coming out of this committee, we are clear and on the same page in terms of where we are as committee. You know, X number of yays, X number of nays, X number of abstains. I do not recommend we go into the full commission in an ambiguous situation. So that I'm not in favor of that whatsoever, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you. David.
It pains me to say this, but I agree with Jane. but I'm going to make two other comments.
What
Number
the-
one,
What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you talking? I'm coming to see you, man.
Okay.
I'm coming to see you.
well,
Thank
I'm still pissed off at Janet for having made that comment about me dragging on the next meeting, but I'll deal with that separately. Number one is I'm not going to try to write up the minutes of this conversation. This conversation it's been a comedy show, truthfully.
It's the waiting for Guffman of
I'm not-
committees.
And it's gone so many twists and turns and motions within motions and all. This is going to be impossible to write up. Number two is I'm going to be almost ballistic like I was in a meeting of the CRC a couple of weeks ago. We are so complicating this issue by talking about all these ins and outs and twists and turns and stuff. Let's just have Dick's recommendations for a meeting of a half an hour, or if I'm going to talk, Janet, maybe it should be 2 hours, but just do it all at one time and get over these interim convoluted steps. We need to go, as Jane said, with a fully informed, everybody on board, everybody had the same chance to look at the wording, and we've agreed to it as a subcommittee, and we're not going in with just two people who come up with language. I'm sorry, I will calm down by the next meeting. Thank you.
I love the fact that you agreed with me, David. Thank you.
That doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen in the future.
Okay, Dick,
Can we agree right now to all look at our calendars and pick a time for, and I mean this, a 20-minute meeting? Can we do that? Does everybody agree?
yeah.
Yeah,
If
So-
we're gonna
Alright.
add a meeting, Mr. Chair, may I speak for a moment?
Posting
Yeah,
it.
yes, please.
I cannot do another meeting during business hours,
Fine.
period. This has been a huge detriment to my team, having me away for almost 4 hours. It is a big deal for my team. So I do not agree if it is during business hours, period. So
What about
I
Monday
will-
or Tuesday after business hours?
great, sure.
Monday?
We have to think about posting because it's technically an open meeting.
So
That's,
for-
we have to call it a working meeting. I'm not sure what the rules around working meetings are.
You need to bump it. Hey, you need to bump it to Tuesday so you can advertise it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay. How
Tuesday's
about
fine.
Tuesday?
I'm going to be off.
Well, I'm sorry. I was Olivia. Are you able to do mornings before or evenings best?
either.
Okay, because you could also do Wednesday morning then too. It just has to be before the. Or wait, are we scheduled this presentation, Olivia? Is it Wednesday or Thursday? For the full CRC.
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay, so it could be Wednesday morning as well.
Wednesday morning would be great for me.
Olivia said she can't do that. Why don't we just do it?
No,
at
she
this
said she
time?
could do before work.
Well, I thought all of these were. But
Okay.
what
What-
about
what is-
7 o'clock? If we were continuing these weekly meetings, it would be 7 o'clock on. Oh, wait a minute, it wouldn't be till Thursday. I'm sorry.
Right, that's the day
I'm
after.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Olivia, what time does your day start? Okay.
For work
Scare
or in
us.
general?
Scare us. No, not in general.
Work? Oh, I mean, if realistically 7:30.
So could
7:30
we
for
do
a
it?
meeting, or for 7:30 you need to be in your office?
7:30, I have to be on my way to my office.
Okay, so it'd
Could
have
you-
to be like 7.
7 o'clock.
I can do a 7 a.m. Wednesday morning.
I can do a 7 a.m. Wednesday morning.
Yes.
Are we talking about next Wednesday morning?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
19th, Wednesday the 19th at 7 a.m.
Yeah,
Just-
I have a 7 a.m. meeting with a European client. So I would have to, I would just have to register my position via email.
So
Okay,
do I, no, you can't do it via email, but if you were to log into the meeting, just so you were there
uh-huh.
and just say, hey, if this were to come up, actually, no, it wouldn't be the motion. Never mind.
All right, how about Tuesday evening after Olivia finishes work?
I'm done on Tuesday. I can't do Tuesday. I don't
What
need to.
about, What about Tuesday morning, 7 o'clock? Was that ruled out?
Yes, unfortunately, I have two, I'm sorry, I have two, really, I've got client interviews on Tuesday and Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. with.
Monday at 7 o'clock?
I can do Monday at 7 a.m.
You can't do Monday at 7 a.m. because of the advertising. What if we go back to
No.
Monday at 7 a.m. and if Jane
What
can't,
about 8 at Wednesday?
I can't. I'm busy as of 7:30 on every day.
What about 6 o'clock in the morning?
There you
I'll
go.
The red eye.
It's like,
Yeah, forget it.
How about 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning? And if Jane can stop in for 2 seconds, great. And if she can't, it seems like we have we have consensus almost, or at
Can
least
I make a recommendation?
Yeah,
Jane, is your start 7 a.m.?
Yeah, it is.
Could you jump on at 6:45 just to tell what your concerns are, and then we can keep going through 7 o'clock?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can do that. I'm
Okay.
I'm going live for an interview with,
Great.
so I could do that for sure.
And
She
even
can-
if you jumped on and said, "Hey, I can't talk," and you had all your things written out and you put in chat your concerns, you could be off in 30 seconds.
Sure,
There's-
yeah.
She
Yeah,
can give us her concerns ahead of time. She doesn't
Yeah.
have to wait.
she's not going to be able to vote on the action, on the executive action, unless she's present for the vote. So it
Mm.
doesn't, she could send us an email beforehand. So if we started at 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning and Jane wasn't able to be there, we could take into consideration as individuals her comments via email, but she wouldn't be present for the executive action.
Does it matter if I'm not present? Do you have enough?
No,
do
that's
you
what
have
I was trying to
quorum?
say, but I'm fumbling my words because I followed Dick's recommendation and poured a glass of wine. So what I'm trying to say is it feels like we're all on a similar page here. So I don't feel like there's going to be a lot of controversy. And so we're
No.
going to finalize language. And if that's the case, all you need is a quorum.
And
Yeah,
then we
so
have,
if you-
Olivia?
You guys, I'm sorry. Oh, Mr. Chair,
Oh,
Mr. Chair, I just
yeah.
want to let you know, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. I don't want to stymie this. I just want to be supportive and, yeah, so whatever can facilitate that.
So the time we're considering is 6:45 or is it 7 o'clock?
7 o'clock on Wednesday.
7
And
o'clock Wednesday morning.
Olivia's got her hand raised, and
Yeah,
that may be a
Olivia.
bump.
I really think and hope that the recommendation can be written up and sent to everyone. And if everyone reads it, not at 6 o'clock in the morning,
But-
come prepared, we can vote and make it 15 minutes and be done.
Totally.
Please actually do your homework. Like, I always read the things, so just read it so we can drink our coffee, vote, and get on with it. Just a suggestion.
Olivia, I don't know. Am I the only one who thinks she looks entirely different right now? I think
Oh, we
I'm-
said that when she got on. So,
She
David,
looks so
Yes,
totally
David.
hip.
Real lighting.
Yeah, a procedural
Oh.
thing, a
Yes, David.
procedural suggestion on Wednesday, that you give Janet the ability to mute me after a half an hour, so I don't dominate the whole meeting and
No,
bring
no,
up all,
20 minutes.
bring up frivolous points. So I,
Just a motion.
I'm okay with that. My
Second
wife
that.
seconds the motion, by the way.
Oh, funny.
I'm
Okay.
gonna third that motion.
But we do.
Can I
Okay.
have a proxy for the general meetings?
So but we are still under discussion on this matter, I think. So we do have a motion and a second on the table.
I withdraw the motion.
What is the motion?
Is it to have you brought?
Just withdrew it.
Yeah.
There is no motion. By consensus, we've agreed
No,
that
there-
Dick is gonna do this.
Chair was trying to be appropriate and saying that we were technically under discussion for a
so
previous.
he's withdrawn it, and I'll withdraw
Yeah.
my second.
So the
Okay.
motion is off the table. And so now by consensus saying, let's meet again on Wednesday because we all have so much fun together.
And Dick and I will get this to you no later than Saturday evening, Dick, because that'll give him,
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah.
okay.
And I would just like to note that while I was the only one who was at a wine tasting prior to this meeting, you wouldn't know it.
Can I, Mr. Chair, can I
Good
make
thing.
one more
Yes.
comment?
Yes, Jane.
When we do present this issue to the full commission, I would like to say that we were the most fun committee. of
Thank
all-
you. That's what I've been
Honestly.
saying all along. We are the most fun.
And Dave, man, you've been rocking it. Like, honestly, thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate,
Jane.
you know, yeah. So just, yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much, guys.
Yay. And
Thank you.
and Dave, you'll
Fair-
figure out how to advertise this meeting, the 7 a.m.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Or Olivia, or
Miss Olivia. Can
Yeah,
help it.
don't, hey, talk to Olivia.
Wouldn't it be awesome? We
and
had a
thank
ton
you.
of people show up with public comment.
I can't honestly, that'd be awesome. I actually can't believe Deborah Hoskinson didn't show up tonight since it was concerning. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't believe you got her name right.
I always had her name right.
Yeah, it was me.
Does she,
So,
does she know, does she know we're going in a different direction? Does, Jane,
Yeah.
have you, Janet, no?
I
All
did
of us,
not,
all of us need to know that we're putting in our calendar a 7 a.m. meeting on Wednesday.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, it's not 6:45 then.
No,
Okay.
7 a.m.
7 a.m.
You
Yeah.
can show up at 6:45 and get your comments out of the way.
No, well,
Yeah.
no, what's gonna happen is Dick Crowd is gonna call me at 6:30 and say, I thought the meeting started at 6:30.
Okay.
I'm done.
I make a motion that we adjourn. I love this group.
No, this is
Seconded.
fun.
Is there a
This is
second
fun.
there? Okay.
No.
Seconded, you crazies.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
First and second, we're going to
Seconded. Good night,
Oh,
Mr. Chair. Good night,
closed.
everyone.
thank you,
Okay,
everybody.
Dave, could you stay on a second?
Yes.
Okay.
But
Bye,
end the
guys.
recording.
You guys are the
And-
best. Good night.